I am Andree, and this is my Catholic Witness. My name is Andree, and I am married. I have 2 children, 2 grown-up children, and 4 grandchildren. And I was a former medical assistant. I was born in a suburb of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And the province of Quebec was at the time very Catholic. The greatest of the population was Catholic. My parents were not outwardly religious, but they wanted us children. I have 3 siblings. I have 3 brothers. They wanted us children to have a good rounded education, including religious education. And so to that effect, they found in the city that we were living, they found a boarding school, a Catholic boarding school, and so they decided that would be a good place for me. I have learned at the boarding school, I can say that I have learned more about the doctrine of our Catholic faith. I learned the doctrine, and and it was through the catechism, and it was Catechism of Baltimore Catechism that was pre-Vatican. So there was some emphasis on the do's and the don'ts. So that's what I kind of seem to remember more about that time. It was like, the way I look at it today, it was like when you have a frame, you know, you have the frame, but you don't have the picture in the frame yet. So that's how I would kind of categorize that. As a child, of course, being in a boarding school, it was somehow at times lonely. But one thing I remember well is that the nuns, and I was educated by nuns, the holy names of Jesus and Mary, the nuns at night, if we were good, they would read us stories, bedtime stories. And I can remember that they would mention to us that if you're lonely or if you have problems, talk and pray to Blessed Mother. She's a mother, she understands. And so this was a good, that was good for me. That helped me to at least to have this warmth, this tenderness that I didn't find as much, you know, through the doctrine and through the catechism. Since I was pretty much brought up by the nuns, it was a nun. This nun, I will never forget her, because she was fairly young, and she had an enthusiasm, and she had such joy that it was kind of surprising. And she would speak about our Lord, about Jesus, in such a tender way, and in such an intimate way. And you know, it kind of floored me. And I thought, you know, I need to know more. I need to know more. I learned so much about her, and it made me think. And it was the very first time that I think that faith was more than a set of principles, that it was more than what I had learned in the books, that it was a person. And so that made me think, and then I was wondering if that would not be my path. to give my life to the Lord and to be at His service and at the service of others. So it just seemed to me that maybe I was called to the religious life. And so right after high school, and I was very young, I was 17, I was accepted by the same community where I had learned the holy names of Jesus and Mary. And so I started my formation to become a nun. But unfortunately, my health was not very strong, and my health did not keep up. I was not able to keep up. You know, it's a fairly rigorous program, and so I was kind of foretold that perhaps this was not the place where God calls me. And in fact, one of the priests that came to visit said, I would think that maybe God calls you, you know, to be married and have a family. So I came out of the convent, and not very long after, I met my future husband, my knight in his shining armor. He had already made a promise. My husband is originally from Germany, and he had already made a promise to his mother that he was going to go back. After just a few months of courtship, he went back home, and I was quite heartbroken. I was quite heartbroken. But I'm a kind of a stubborn person, and so we corresponded for a while, and then I found out his intentions were, you know, his intentions were that we get married, I just up and left for Germany. I left for Germany, and we were married there, and we stayed in Germany for 1 year, and then we came back. Then we came back to Canada, and now started, you know, a different way of life. I was pregnant, and for my first child, her name is Karine, a girl, and you know, life took over, and it seems that according to faith, I think that God was put a little more in the background. He was put in the background. In Quebec, we are spoiled because all the schools are Catholic schools, and so the children, you know, have that. They have that basis. They have that basis, at least that formation, that religious formation. But then we moved to California, and our faith not being very strong, and having the challenge of being new immigrants, the challenge of the children, new schools and everything. I can say regretfully that God was definitely in the background, that He was not in the foreground at all, and so that's how the children had their sacraments. But after that, you know, also we realized that, you know, Catholic schools, we were spoiled. They were free back there, and they're not here. It's you have to want it, and you have to really want to put God in your life, and you need to make sacrifice for that. And we were not ready for that at that time in our life. God always knocks, and I was in and out, you know. I wanted to go back because there was something missing in my life, but I was, you know, back and forth, straddling, you know, the back and forth. Then one day, our dear daughter had a very serious personal crisis. And for me as a mother, I was devastated. I was truly devastated. I did not know where to turn. And it seems that my life was in a shamble, that I had made a mess of everything, that I felt that I was, a part to blame in that. And I was, so as I say, I was a mess. And then not very long afterwards, I was invited to a weekend retreat. And it was not a Catholic retreat, but it was a spiritual retreat. But what I didn't know, lo and behold, was that it was in a Catholic retreat house, and a San Franciscan house in St. Ines in California. And I, after asking if I needed to do anything, and I was told, no, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to. That's fine. I said, okay, I'll go. And that was a very special weekend. God was waiting for me. On that weekend, of course, I was very depressed and so on. And I had a room, and my room was at the end of a hall, and at the end of the hall was a lifestyle statue of Blessed Mother. I always had a little bit of affinity with Blessed Mother, and even in the times where, my faith was almost non-existent, every once in a while I would talk to her, and I would say, maybe you can help me, because I don't feel very good. So I remember looking at her, and it seemed to me that she was looking at me. And then as we went on that weekend retreat, I saw some doors, and I realized these were the doors of a chapel. And on the doors, above the doors, it says, "Come to me, ye who is burdened." So I opened that door, and it was not benches, but it was little chairs, and I just slumped on the chair. I just slumped there, and it seems to me that I heard it. Come. Why don't you give me all your burden? Why don't you? And then there was this battle inside of me, that, well, I'm afraid. What, Lord, are you going to do to me if I come back? I have not been very faithful. What's going to happen to me? I'm very scared. And it just seems to me that I was prompted to relax and say, I'm here, and I love you. I care for you. So for a moment, it seems to me that my burdens were lifted. It was, I could not understand really, and I cannot really explain it in words, but for a short moment, my burdens were lifted. And then, of course, it was back to reality. But when I opened the door again, I knew that there was something different, that there was something happened in there. I realized that this was my encounter. That was my encounter with a loving God that I had not had before. So at the end of the retreat, everyone was looking for me. And why? Because I had grabbed the priest that was there for us if we needed him. And that's where I decided that I wanted to come home. And in order to do that, I wanted to receive the Sacrament of Reconciliation. I mean, I didn't know, exactly how to confess or exactly where to start. And
how long had it been for you since you'd been to confession?
25 years. 25 years. So it was quite rusty. But God is so good, and through this priest, I was able to do confession. I came to realize later on that in the Eucharist, Jesus offers himself as small and wants to give himself to me. And in the Sacrament of Reconciliation, he wants me to be a little smaller. He wants me to make the effort so that he could dispense his love for me, his great love. Because, probably in my own bringing, the idea of love was more, if I do something for you, you're going to love me in return. But to be loved completely for free, completely unconditional, it was kind of a foreign concept for me. I learned something very special, and to try to imagine, to try to see with my imagination, and to know that it is not the priest. He's only there like a pencil is there, that you write with. It's Jesus himself that comes in that sacrament. So that's why I'm a little bit weird, but that's why I come to appreciate more and more this sacrament. Oh, I have a few. So it's difficult to really pick. After Holy Mass, which is, of course, we learned that it's the summit, it's the source and the summit of our Catholic life. After the Holy Mass, I also come to appreciate the exposition of the sacrament, the Blessed Sacrament, which is a tradition in our church. We have the holy hour, on a regular basis in our parish. At this time, we have it every 7th of the month, and we're also privileged to have every day at least an hour between the two masses. So, and I try to come. It really. It is a break in the craziness of life, and since it's in the morning, I'm able to put it, to really put God in there, in that schedule there in the morning, and just to be with Him. There was this man that he would disappear at lunch, and they didn't know where he was. And then one day they found him. They found him in the church, and they found him in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And they asked him, "So, what do you do? What do you say?" And he says, "Well, Jesus looks at me, and I look at him." And that's really one of my favorites, my favorite saying. Now, of course, I cannot forget Blessed Mother, because after all, who brought me back? I sincerely believe that she did. So, anything that's affiliated with Blessed Mother is very, very dear to me. I sincerely believe that she I cannot do things on my own. I did find out when I had this breakdown, I cannot do anything on my own. but I sincerely believe that she can bring me to him, you know. So sometimes, you know, I may not be, you know, what I need to be, but I really believe I love her dearly, and I believe that she will bring me to port. What I would like to say is what our Pope Francis has mentioned not long ago in one of his homilies, and he said, pray for the grace to remember your first encounter with love. Pray for that. So I guess that it can be alive and can continue. And I would also say, for me, if you did not have this encounter, pray for it. Even ask Blessed Mother for it. She never says no. When it comes something for our best, a mother, in this case, a mother knows best, right? She will obtain that grace. So, and also another liking that I like from our Pope Francis, when he says, God never is tired to forgive. It's us who are tired to ask for forgiveness. So these are the two things that, you know, that I would like, that if anyone has pain, has sorrows, feel far, if they remember that, God will bring them home.